Tamworth's Louise McFall is one of Australia's elite athletes, and the champion javelin thrower also has the world at her feet. Her magnificent first throw of 63.76 metres at the Commonwealth Games in Victoria, Canada, enough to win the gold medal. It comes with much hard work in a sport that relies not only on fitness but tremendous technique. Pauline Mensah took the sport of surfing by storm last season, taking out the world women's title. The surfer from Byron Bay has been dogged with arthritis problems but continued to impress. Always strong in big conditions, Pauline picked up 4 tour events in '94, just missing out on retaining her crown. Still on the water and yet another high flyer, champion Lake Macquarie sailor Chris Nicholson. With his brother Darren, Chris skippered his 505 dinghy to recapture the world title. No one can come near Nicholson, who dominates in his field. He has qualified for the Atlanta Olympics in the Tornado catamaran class.
Foster travel agents were the last to be notified of the air service suspension. The decision comes almost 1 year after Tamair took over the flight operations from Oxley Airlines, which had suspended its service after just 2 days of flights. Tamair management says there's no market for daily flights out of Foster.
But unfortunately, the passenger numbers weren't there to justify the service, despite a very extensive marketing campaign both in Sydney and in Tamworth and the Northwest.
Before the Foster terminal closed its doors on Monday, passengers were required to take a boat to Wallis Island to board a plane. A return trip to Sydney would cost $130. The Director of Wallis Island Management, Ron Guthrie, says a factor leading to the demise of the service was the size of the plane and the recent Seaview Airlines crash. But Peter Brederick says there's no mistake. A lack of local interest has cost them more money than it was worth.
The aircraft that we had operating in Foster is sitting here on the ground in Tamworth doing nothing now. It was actually cheaper to park the aircraft on the ground to do nothing than to continue operating it.
Meanwhile, Mr Brederick says despite allegations to the contrary, Tamair remains in Gunnedah as long as it will be economically viable. Tracy Walsh, NBN News.
On 3 nights this week, police have been called to ram raid attacks on businesses. Overnight, it was this news agency in New Lambton. The thieves backed a stolen car across a footpath and rammed the front of the shop. Witnesses told police they saw 3 men jump out of the car. All they stole was cigarettes.
Just a lot of damage for so little.
It's the second time in 14 months that Ross Gallucci has had his business rammed. It will cost him several $1,000s to repair the damaged wall and replace the front doors.
I really don't know where they get their enjoyment out of. There's certainly no enjoyment for us.
It's believed the 3 attacks this week are linked. Early on Monday, the Pelican RSL Club was hit, and the next night, the Belmont Sporties Club was rammed. On each occasion, a stolen car was used and later found abandoned. The vehicle driven last night was found dumped at Tighes Hill. It had been stolen from Wickham.
We've been following those inquiries in relation to the cars and the premises. Initial investigations say they are similar.
Police are also looking at the possibility that a break-in at a supermarket at Dora Creek overnight may also be connected with the raids. The door was jemmied open and the cash register stolen. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
When Redhead Tip closed last August, Council introduced a bulk waste collection service. Residents are encouraged to stockpile their rubbish before requesting a large container bin that's delivered and collected by Cleanaway. Since the free service began, Council says it's been inundated with complaints. According to Councillor Jill Hall, who rode in a collection truck today, it's not meeting the needs of Lake Macquarie residents.
The demand is really outstripping the availability of the service, and we've got to address that.
Along with lengthy delays in deliveries and pickups, many residents are overfilling containers and dumping prohibited items, including bricks, concrete and toxic chemicals.
Previously, people could take that rubbish to the tip, but they can't do that now, so I think we've got to look at that and see if we can find some sort of solution to that problem.
Problems have escalated to such an extent, Council will next week consider a report recommending a number of improvements to the service. But despite the teething problems, some residents claim they're happy with the system.
I think it's a very good service. Saves me going to dump, saves a lot of hassle. It's definitely easier this way.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
The 120-year-old building in Scott Street is home to the Hunter Area Health Service, which leases the premises from the state government. However, the health service no longer needs the space and plans to move out. Originally, the government had planned to sell the site. However, after lobbying by local member Bryce Gowdry and the building's other tenants, it's set to become the city's first community centre.
The great thing about 88 Scott Street is that it is accessible by rail transport and bus transport, that's public transport, to the whole of the Hunter Valley.
For the various volunteer groups sharing the rundown building, the offer to the Newcastle City Council could end years of uncertainty surrounding their futures.
It ends about 3 years of uncertainty as to whether we would have somewhere to operate from.
The future of the building now hinges on a decision by the Newcastle City Council to fund its restoration and ongoing maintenance. Restoration costs are put at about $500,000. However, with the building due to be listed on the Heritage Register late next month, the Council's decision may be made easier by funding options. Phil Hind, NBN News.
Not your average shop window display, but one that raised a few eyebrows near Newcastle today.
Well, we've had a couple of screech breaks out the front, a few near misses as far as car accidents go. We had one lady come back 4 times to check out the guys in the window.
The models were showing off the latest in summer swimwear, a new German design material made of nylon and lycra that lets you tan gently without the strap marks.
And because of that construction, it allows them to do with the honeycomb weave on it, which allows the UVA and UVB rays to tan, to seep through the pores in the fabric to give an all-over tan.
The solar tan-through range has made a big splash in Europe and has only recently entered the Australian market.
It still has an SPF factor, which is very important. It's something that we certainly promote, but it just allows a natural tan with acting basically like a shade cloth.
Because the fabric allows sunlight to get through, it's been recommended for maximum protection that sunscreen should still be used, especially in sensitive areas. So what does the average person in the street think of the latest beachwear fashion?
Can I ask you what you think about the models in the window?
Beautiful they are.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Parking meters have been absent from the heart of Newcastle for more than a year in a trial aimed at bringing shoppers back into the city. According to the City Centre Committee, it's worked. The CBD again able to compete with suburban shopping centres.
We think it's a user-friendly city with the parking meters out, and that's how it should be. That's our recommendation.
The estimated $600,000 raised each year by the meters is likely to influence the City Council's eventual decision on their future. Local shopkeepers concede that council is foregoing revenue that could be spent on city facilities. However, they still prefer the city centre without parking meters.
Yes, I think it's a much better move for the whole town. Having meters gives the town a bad feeling for people not coming into the town.
Parking meters most certainly didn't work.
Oh, most definitely that they've gone. But at the same time, people are still parking out the front for hours on end, mainly people that work around the area, and that's inhibiting our customers, so it's not good for business.
Deputy Lord Mayor Frank Rigby doesn't think meters should be reinstated, but he also believes the City Centre Committee has inflated the parking issue.
They're paranoid about parking. Newcastle has not got a parking problem compared to other cities.
The committee's report on parking meters should be submitted for Council's consideration in about 2 months. Ian Cameron, NBN News.
The first Japanese casualty could only pack up his kit after his impromptu landing in the Dixon Park Surf Lifesaving Club car park.
It sort of hovered when it got behind the surf club, got about 20 foot up and just dropped. The guy landed on his legs. Apparently they're dropping like flies at the moment.
Another pilot fell from grace a few hundred metres away on Merriweather Beach. The worst injured a 35-year-old pilot who clipped power lines, landing in the yard of a house. He was taken to John Hunter Hospital with cuts to the head. They are among 16 Japanese tourists who were spending the last day of their Australian visit in the air currents above Newcastle. The Australian organiser of the flights wouldn't talk about the crashes, except to say all the pilots were licensed and experienced. It's believed they were caught in strong southeasterly winds. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. It's alleged the bandits got away with an undisclosed amount of cash just before 6 last night. Central Coast Police launched an extensive search for the gunman and the driver of the getaway vehicle. They were tracked to the Tuggerah Lakes Memorial Club, where it's alleged 2 men had joined them. It's alleged the car sped off. The white Tirana forced to stop after police pierced its tyres with bullets. 2 men were captured and taken to the entrance police station for questioning. 1 man's been charged with 27 offences, including armed robbery and use of a weapon to avoid arrest. 2 of the alleged offenders are still on the loose. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Having graduated from Texas Christian University, Reggie Smith was a second-round draft pick for the Portland Trailblazers in 1992. But due to a lack of court time, the 24-year-old, who's 211 centimetres and weighs 115 kilos, left Portland last year to play in Europe. A change of management at Portland is likely to see him return to the Trailblazers. The Falcons delighted to have his services to replace Terry Dozier.
He's an excellent rebounder. He can also score points, and that's something that Terry was good at. But we know that we've got the feeling that Reggie's certainly going to be just as equal to Terry, and if not, probably a bit better.
Meantime, another sportsman enjoying success in America was on display at Marathon Stadium last night. Dave Nelson, who's with the Milwaukee Brewers in the US, turned out for the Waverley Reds. The Eagles began the game well with home runs to Todd Nichols, and the first of 3 on the night to catcher Bob Henley. But their joy was short-lived, Nelson sending the Reds on their way to a 9-6 victory in Game 1. Waverley also won the second match 6-2.
The finalists have already started to arrive for the North's biggest sport awards ceremony. They include stars from a spectrum of disciplines, ranging from swimming to surfing to 10-pin bowling. Among them are Australian, Commonwealth and World champions.
In the 16-year history, I think it's a very, very good field. Of course, it's been the Commonwealth Games year, and the Commonwealth Games feature prominently, but there is a wide range of sports.
For the finalists, the wait will be over in the next few hours, with NBN's coverage of the awards to start from 8:30. The employee arrived at Sandy Seafood on the Pacific Highway at about 5 o'clock this morning when he was set upon by two men wearing balaclavas. Police say the man was threatened with a knife before being knocked unconscious and tied up. He was found several hours later by an employee arriving for work. The bandits got away with more than $1,000. The injured man was taken to the Mater Hospital but has since been released. Meanwhile, the driver and passenger of this car have been charged with numerous offences after allegedly leading police on a wild chase in the stolen vehicle from Maitland to Cessnock just after 2 o'clock this morning. After 3/4 of an hour, the two 17-year-olds were eventually captured just metres from the Cessnock police station. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
A gallery employee noticed the theft when she arrived for work today.
She gets here at 5 o'clock and she noticed on her way into the building that it was missing. So we then had a bit of a hunt around Civic Park and behind the gallery and we couldn't find it.
Named Space Time 2, the sculpture is the work of Japanese artist Minami Tado and is valued at about $75,000. The stainless steel structures had been set in concrete, but that didn't prevent thieves from removing the smallest of the three.
Well, they must have had some sort of jemmy or crowbar or something like that to break the weld underneath it, so they've actually levered it off its base.
In 1982, the sculpture was presented as a gift of friendship from Newcastle's Japanese sister city, Ube. It's not the first time thieves have struck. The same piece was stolen 5 years ago.
Fortunately, that was returned. We arrived at work one morning and it was returned sitting on the grass, so let's hope the same thing happens this time.
While the theft has prompted the need for greater security, the incident has forced the gallery to question the future of outdoor exhibits.
It makes me feel a bit sad, really, that we have all these splendid pieces of public artwork and they're not really looked after and appreciated. We do hope that whoever took it will return it.
Anyone with information is asked to contact Newcastle Police. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
In 1992, the unthinkable happened in the United States. The Toronto Blue Jays from Canada won the World Series. But another country also began to invade America's favourite pastime that year. Graham Lloyd and Dave Nelson, the Aussie Trailblazers. The larger-than-life figure faced up to the Hunter Eagles over the weekend, taking on his old coach, Eagles manager Gomer Hodge.
Gomer managed me back in 1988 when I was very young, and he really helped me a lot. He was with me for 6 months and helped me grow up, not just play, so I thank him for a lot of things.
That was back in 1988, but as Gomer saw, his star pupil has improved. Nelson played an integral role in the Reds' clean sweep at Marathon, but complimented the league's newest team on their season's performance.
They got good imports, which is a big key for any team, and the young guys are real battlers who can really swing the bat when they get hot, so for, like I said, an expansion team, they're pretty good.
Nelson now owns part of the Reds, but will return to the Milwaukee Brewers in March. Optimistic he and Eagles players Everett Stool and Brad Boyd won't be caught in the current players' strike.
I think the two most likely things are to be resolved right in the middle of spring training, or if that doesn't happen, it's probably going to be another couple months. And it's a shame because the big losers are the fans, and we really do need to resolve it as soon as possible.
broke into the National Australia Bank on the Pacific Highway at Belmont during Saturday night and later forced their way into a nearby hairdresser's. They stole nothing from the bank and a cash float from the salon. It's thought they were driving this stolen yellow Commodore. Police believe the robberies are connected with a spate of recent attacks in the area. Last week, the Pelican RSL Club, the Belmont Sporties Club and the New Lambton News Agency were rammed by stolen vehicles. There was also a break-in at the Dora Creek supermarket. And police are also investigating a robbery from Sandy's seafood shop at Motto Farm near Raymond Terrace over the weekend. They're unsure whether it's connected with the ram raid attacks. In that robbery, an employee was set upon by two men wearing balaclavas. In a separate matter, a 27-year-old man from Tregear in Sydney faces 27 charges after a dramatic chase on the Central Coast over the weekend. The man was arrested after the tyres on his vehicle were pierced by bullets fired by police. It followed the hold-up of the Long Jetty News Agency. The man has been charged with 11 armed robberies, most of them committed in the Sydney area. Police are still hunting for two other men.
The ground is about to pound.
How true it was, the 20-lap Sprint Car Classic was more like a Dodgem car event in the early stages as drivers manoeuvred to get round Sydney's Peter Addart and Ken Croft, who both came to grief. Skip Jackson and Robert Farr suffered a similar fate after their duel came to a halt. Farr slamming into Jackson, ripping the front end out of the car and flattening his own wheel. Kading had a comfortable victory, giving the Winfield-Kelly team a double as Kelly was second with Peter Craft third and Leland McSpadden fourth. Earlier there was drama in the modified rods, Dave Bryant bumping wheels with Graham Edmund, sending his car out of control.
And there's Dave Bryant over and into the wall.
The Super Sedans return to the Motordrome this Wednesday for the Tui's International.
We hate to lose any place, but Newcastle is absolutely the worst place to lose.
And that sums it up. New boys Steve Francis and veteran Charlie Schwartz were relaxing at Newcastle Beach today, but no amount of sun and surf could alter their feelings. They believe they were harshly treated by officials during the third test against the Australians.
We have to beat them besides beating the good drivers and race cars they have here, and we have to beat the officials here. And I don't mind getting beat by drivers, you know, but when the officials come into it, that's what really upsets me.
Well, they kind of took advantage of a few situations with the officials, and then the last race they kind of got side by side and just played block the racetrack, and we came to race. We didn't come to play. We came to win every race we ran.
What hurts more is that it was the Americans' only loss of the season and what has been one of their most successful summers on record. They've set track records up and down the East Coast and intend to add tomorrow night's 25-lap Tui's International to their growing list of achievements down under.
If you like. These are a small boat, they've only got one sail. Okay, watch me. Only got one sail.
From there. So remember, this is the accelerator.
These are a small boat, they've only got one sail. Okay, watch me. Only got one sail.
Adam Keddy said thank you to the crew of Newcastle's Westpac rescue helicopter and became a member of the team. Dressed in the appropriate outfit and with his two brothers in tow, he was offered another trip in the chopper, this time a joy flight.
First one was trauma, and as he said, he never remembered everything bar the helicopter flight, so this is a treat for him.
It was a different story on December 28. Adam was rushed from Manning-based hospital in Taree to Newcastle John Hunter Hospital after being bitten by a funnel web spider at Pacific Palms near Foster. It was a critical period, the 7-year-old boy reacting badly to the bite. Now Adam is fighting fit. His joy flight over Newcastle's beaches was a special treat, enjoying the view and getting to know the crew of the rescue chopper. And the Charm Haven lad has also made another friend from the spider bite. NBN's Mike Rabbit, who was on holidays, identified and caught the funnel web at the time of the attack. Adam loves seeing his new mate on TV.
When he was across the road camping next to us, he didn't have his moustache, and on television he does.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The first annual report on beach quality was music to the ears of the corporation's directors. Hunter Water took a gamble in publicising weekly figures on the water quality at 32 beaches under its control, and the verdict: the surf is as clean as rainwater.
We're the only water authority in Australia that publishes the results. We measure our bathing beach quality at about 20 points along our coastline, and the results are outstanding.
National guidelines require the faecal coliform count, bacteria found in humans and animals, to be less than 150 per 100 mils. Only once were 2 beaches found to be unsafe. The dry spell caused a build-up of material in stormwater drains, and the first December rainfall flushed pollutants into the ocean at Merewether and North Stockton. Before 1989, when the Burwood outfall was built, readings as high as 20,000 faecal coliform per 100 mil were common.
Since we've introduced the outfalls, we have exceptionally clean beaches. They are way below the guidelines set by the health authorities, and people in Newcastle can be very confident that they can swim in them quite safely.
The sleek vessel was a magnificent sight as it sailed up the coast from Sydney to Newcastle. The Royal Australian Navy's youngest guided missile frigate, HMAS Newcastle, is a trained killer, but this mission is one of peace. While the routine work still needed to be done, the crew of 192 men and women were also preparing for some celebrations in their namesake port. Skipper Commander Rowan Moffat being Newcastle's official Australia Day ambassador.
Tomorrow we're taking part in Australia Day celebrations, and on Saturday we become the flagship for the regatta, and we'll be also granted the freedom of entry to the city.
As it came into the harbour, the city of Newcastle turned on a special welcome for the ship. It's the kind of reception the crew is becoming accustomed to, and they returned the favour with an 11-gun salute. Also on board, a special English visitor. For charity, he'd paid a king's ransom to make the trip. 2 years ago, he also shelled out to be on board the Royal Navy ship Newcastle.
The Fulton trip was probably about £15,000.
And the Newcastle Australia trip?
This one was 23.
The HMAS Newcastle is in the city for 4 days. The ship will be on public display from 1 p.m. tomorrow and on Sunday. Peter Ryan, NBN News. More than 600 angry farmers packed into the Narrabri RSL Club wanting something to be done.
It's a nightmare, quite frankly, and it's a nightmare that's been shoved under the carpet for too long.
The controversy began 4 months ago when American buyers knocked back Aussie beef they claim was contaminated with chemicals. Studies in Australia linked it to a chemical helix used to spray cotton. In the drought, cotton trash was a common feed for stock, giving farmers a fighting chance to save their starving animals and their livelihood. The chemicals remained in the cattle.
These producers are desperate and they're innocent.
The farmers have called for government compensation to cover loss of sales.
Taxpayers of New South Wales should foot the bill to some extent because it's going to be in their long-term interest if this industry is preserved and allowed to grow and not killed as this issue potentially could do if it's not well handled.
Farmers are also angry at having to foot the bill for testing for the chemical in their stock, with some producers facing financial ruin. A steering group will continue the fight with the government.
Mr Lindsay was rushed by ambulance from the Thunderbird Caravan Park at Nemmingar to Tamworth Base Hospital at around 7:30 this morning. The internationally renowned singer was in Tamworth for a host of appearances at the annual Country Music Festival. The 62-year-old star was to perform at the awards for the first time in 17 years and is the official ambassador for the 3-day National Rodeo Finals. Reg Lindsay's singing career spans more than 4 decades, in which he produced over 1,000 radio and television programs.
It was a real shock to hear the news about Reg Lindsay. He's a great pioneer of Australian country music, and we hope that he will have a very speedy recovery. We'd like to wish him well on behalf of the country music industry and all his fans, and of course also send our best wishes to his wife Ros.
Mr Lindsay was airlifted to Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital early this afternoon, where he remains in a critical condition. Liz Rogers, NBN News.
Overcast conditions didn't dampen the spirits of those involved in the canoe races this afternoon. The regatta began with the under-12 years race. There were a few hitches before the starting signal as runaway canoes drifted, requiring the SES to drag them back into position. When the siren had sounded, most lost track of the course, but James Drake of Wingham and Michelle Tolcher of Taree managed to make it back first to the finish. In the under-18s race, Andrew Holloway from Wingham and Greg Tolcher of Taree paddled their canoe to victory.
Oh, it's been very good actually, yes. The weather's held off and it's been a lot of fun for the kids and the adults.
The dirty tricks were at an all-time high when the Open Masters canoe race was held. The fire brigade set the hoses on the competitors, and in retaliation a rescue squad volunteer held back the fire brigade crew as they attempted to start. Tipped to be the grudge match of the day, the Scouts, SES, Rescue Squad and Fire Brigade battled it out. Dodging pirates and hoses, the Rescue Squad made it back to the shore first.
The Fire Brigade got into a bit of a brawl on the water out there, and they've been looking forward for the last 12 months to get back out there and solve it. Well, this year the SES and the Scouts got in on the act too.
The Fire Brigade have promised they'll be back next year to settle the score. Tracy Walsh, NBN News.